I knew what was to come. I couldn't watch all of it. I got up, I walked around, and every time I came back, there was another boy talking about loneliness and depression and fear. Things once seen cannot be unseen. I carry the twisted images of a lifetime of reporting, bodies broken and lifeless, people screaming in pain, rivers of blood and burning flesh. These are things burned into my eyes, and now there is that image of a boy, an Australian boy, bound to a chair, hooded and catatonic. For Indigenous people, these are far too often the images that define Australia. The next evening, I was to give a public lecture at my alma mater, the University of New South Wales. I was receiving a Doctor of Letters, an incredibly proud moment for me and my family. My wife and children were attending, and I had worked on a speech that would speak about my hopes for reconciliation. But I was in no mood to put aside old grievances. 27 July 2016, University of New South Wales, Sydney. There was a speech I had planned to give tonight. I wished it to be a speech rational and measured. In this speech I would have appealed to the best of Australia, to what Abraham Lincoln would have called the better angels of our nature. In this speech I would have wished to locate Indigenous people within the framework of the grand tradition of liberal Western democracy. In this speech I would have spoken of Hegel's idea of man not being at home in the world. I would have asked how we, the first peoples of this land, could be at home in a world imposed upon us. In this speech I would have spoken of Edmund Burke, the father of conservatism, and his template for society, that it be a covenant between those living, those who have passed, and those yet to come. What is this covenant that would link my ancestors and my children? For us, it would not be the glory of nations won, but of nations lost. How then, after having our world upended, could I pledge allegiance to what has supplanted us? In this speech, I could have touched on those thinkers who are the pillars of Western democratic ideas. I would have told of wrestling with John Locke and J.S. Mill, how they have inspired me, yet left me reeling from their implicit, harsh judgment of the society and culture that I am drawn from. I would have told of feeling both drawn to the steadfastness and stoicism of conservatism, yet wonder how so many of those who lay claim to the mantle conservative today can be so mean-spirited and have a deficit of generosity. This speech would have looked to contemporary thinkers like Australian Duncan Iverson. Iverson strives for a theory of justice that enables us to feel at home in the world when we are no longer alienated from the institutions and practices of this society. That being at home in the world is not just having to be resigned to accepting or accommodating injustice. I would have quoted the late American philosopher John Rawls and his idea of reconciliation through public reason, of people being able to endorse the institutions and practices of society and not merely tolerate them. I would have explored what American political scientist William Connolly has termed the vital centre of the nation. I would have returned to John Stuart Mill, the Mill who could speak of a centre that could soften the extreme form and fill up the intervals between us. This speech I wished to give would have sought amity with a tradition that has excluded us. In this speech I would have sought those things that can unite us, not those things that divide. In this speech I would have chosen carefully my words. In this speech I would have sought less to inflame and more to comfort. I cannot give that speech. It is best saved for another day.